The state of our health, something we strive to improve and maintain, but sometimes inadvertently destroy. Universally, it's vitally important, and the Germans have a universal word for it. Gesundheit! Hello and welcome to the program. Coming up in this edition, trachoma, the preventable eye disease, has made it onto the World Health Organization's hit list. This bacterial illness has already blinded 6 million people and infected 150 million more throughout the developing world. Scientists have discovered a new means of detecting when a person is lying, which could revolutionize the security industry. During the test, a high-definition thermal imaging camera scans a person's face to see if they blush at all the wrong times. Pig organ transplants have moved a step closer after a Scottish-based firm produced 5 healthy knockout piglets recently. These young critters have literally had the gene responsible for organ rejection knocked out of their genetic makeup. And due to improper sanitation, slum residents in Kenya often throw human waste into rivers. The flying toilet phenomenon will hopefully come to an end when enough money is raised to build hygienic facilities. But in our first story, we look at the devastating effects of schizophrenia on the brain, discovered recently by researchers at the University of California in Los Angeles School of Medicine. Led by Assistant Professor of Neurology Paul Thompson, the scientists chronicled MRI scans of teenage schizophrenics to build a timeline of how the psychosis engulfs the brain with a wave of tissue loss. Characterized by hallucinations and delusions, schizophrenia affects 1% of the population. Until now, there was no way of predicting its onset. Aided by the knowledge that this mystery illness runs in families, the researchers hope the findings will lead to more effective ways to scan the brain. But at least for now, the findings provide some comfort as patients are able to actually see what's going on inside their own heads. As for drug treatments, doctors are now prescribing Risperdal, a newer class of antipsychotics, with fewer side effects than Haldol, which could lead to disturbing involuntary movements. Researchers are also reporting that Risperdal is significantly more effective in preventing relapses in patients with schizophrenia than Haldol. Good news for the 1% of the world's population who suffer the illness, which also ranks amongst the top 10 causes of disability in developed countries. When it comes to depression, another serious mental condition, it seems that more and more people are visiting the medicine cabinet rather than a therapist's couch. Depression treatment rates have tripled over the last 10 years, but they're primarily medicinal. Much of the credit goes to the popular antidepressants. The first selective serotonin-enhancing medication was introduced in 1987, and now millions of people take drugs like Prozac, Paxil and Zoloft to treat a wide range of depressive illnesses. While these medications have helped destigmatize depression, they're not as long-lasting as psychotherapy, which decreases the chance of recurrence. It's estimated that up to 10% of Americans suffer from major depression in any given year, a rate set to increase worldwide. The microscopic translucent worm C. elegans is famous for being the first animal to have its whole genetic blueprint identified. Southampton scientists are using it as a model to see how the drug ivermectin works on another worm, the parasitic variety that causes river blindness. The disease affects more than 20 million people in Africa and Central South America. It's transmitted from person to person by a small black fly that bites like a mosquito. The fly releases a parasite into the skin of its victim, which eventually destroys the optic nerve. The most effective treatment is an annual dose of ivermectin. It kills the worm by binding to sites called receptors on its muscles and nerves. The worm is then paralyzed and starves to death. Widespread use of ivermectin in veterinary medicine has led to some worms becoming resistant. There are fears that the same might happen in human mass treatment programs. By building up a picture of how C. elegans works, scientists hope to increase our understanding of how to treat and eradicate one of the developing world's most debilitating diseases. Another preventable disease that's blinded 6 million people and infected another 150 million worldwide is trachoma. The bacterial illness causes inflammation and scarring of the inside of the upper eyelid. Over time, the eyelashes turn inward, rubbing and scarring the cornea, leading to blindness. The debilitating disease is endemic in developing countries in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. It's most common in rural areas where overcrowding and poor hygiene spread the bacteria. Trachoma is on the World Health Organization's hit list. In Morocco, antibiotics and improved hygiene have reduced the spread dramatically. In less than 3 years, the infection rate has dropped to below 6%. At the United Nations, FISA announced it's contributing an additional $200 million aimed at targeting blindness in 9 countries and plans to donate the one-dose drug Zithromax. The World Health Organization is working to reduce trachoma in countries like Tanzania and Vietnam, while hoping to eliminate the disease worldwide by 2020. Richard Ferrier is preparing for surgery. He has eye cancer. Very few doctors specialize in the relatively rare eye cancer. There are fewer than 2,000 cases in the US each year. Eye tumors are hard to detect, generally only noticed when vision becomes affected. The cancer is killed with radiation, not with laser beams, but by this, a metal radiated plate which sits perfectly over the tumor. A continuous dose of radiation can be given this way for about 5 days. No one knows what causes eye cancer, but they do know that older people with light skin are most at risk. Richard can't feel the radiated plate in his eye, and in 5 days' time it will be removed. According to the specialists, he has a 99% chance of not only killing the tumour, but also keeping his vision.
Quicker than I thought. Yeah. And actually,
And still on the subject of eyesight, virtually everyone in the Eurozone has experienced some anxiety about the recent change to the new currency. For the blind, getting to grips with the new notes and coins is a double hurdle. Several weeks before the currency change was to take effect, groups for the blind and partially sighted stepped up their information and training campaigns to try to reach the 6 million visually impaired people thought to live in the Eurozone. The ease with which the blind will adapt to the new cash depends on many factors: the extent of their sight loss, their age, the sensitivity of their fingertips, and the habits learnt from handling local notes and coins. At this training session, organised by the AVH Charity for the Blind, people were introduced to the new cash using one-sided dummy euro notes and coins provided by the European Central Bank. The coins are divided into 3 groups of similar design, with markings along the circumference edge, such as grooves, alternate smooth and serrated milling. Stars and letters also help with recognition using a process of elimination. The European Central Bank and various national blind organisations have also designed euro testers, plastic euro aids with braille. To identify notes, the euro tester must be bent in half. The note is then inserted and the section of note now sandwiched between plastic is bent back over. The height to which it comes against the plastic corresponds to its worth in Braille. Coins, on the other hand, are inserted into a narrowing groove. Their corresponding value is marked in Braille at the point where they come to a stop. The notes are all different colours. They use large print for the denomination, and the position of the metal foil also differs. The European Blind Union also advises the use of wallets with several sections for notes and coins as an invaluable tool for blind people. This should reduce the initial confusion until people have had a chance to get used to the new currency.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Lies.
Miss Lewinsky.
Sometimes they can take months of investigation and millions of dollars to uncover. But cutting-edge technology from the Mayo Clinic may finally take the mystery out of deceit. According to doctors, when someone lies, there's a sudden warming around the eyes. The new device detects these altered heat patterns using high-definition thermal imaging equipment, which picks up on the subtle metabolic changes that can occur instantaneously. Clinical trials using a mock crime scenario correctly detected lying 83% of the time. The next step is to develop even smaller cameras and determine if they are as accurate. Scientists at the Mayo Clinic believe that in time, their lie detector will have many practical applications in the security and law enforcement industry, such as at airports and border checkpoints. In theory, blood should rush to the eye area of liars like mini uncontrollable hot flushes, while the innocent remain coolly and calmly unaffected. The system was first used to examine metabolic rate, but suddenly researchers realized that it was so sensitive it could detect fearfulness. As soon as that was confirmed, they decided to see if it could detect lying as well. Experiments in which 20 people were randomly asked to stab a mannequin, rob it of $20 and then profess their innocence showed the technique to be as effective as any existing polygraph test. The thermal camera correctly identified 90% of the true innocents. While polygraph tests have long been considered too slow and cumbersome to be used for airport security, thermal imaging cameras might be a practical and reliable alternative. New technology has also come to the aid of cystic fibrosis sufferers who've been unable until now to travel far from home. CF patients like Kristen McFall are using a new medical device to fight the deadly disease. She's now able to live by herself and not depend on others for treatment. The airway clearing device is called the vest, and it helps clean the lungs of excess mucus by oscillating the chest wall repeatedly. Melody Green has had 2 double lung transplants, and like most transplant patients, she underwent daily chest physiotherapy to keep her lungs functional. But with the vest, it was no longer necessary. Of all the lungs donated each year, only 12% have actually been usable, but the vest was modified recently to ensure the organs were kept in optimal condition even before transplantation, and that means that more lungs will be available for patients like Melody. And an English company is offering drowsy drivers a quick fix solution to keep them alert and safe on the roads. The British Oxygen Company claims that a blast of oxygen is enough to wake the body. A driver simply pulls over for a moment and with the canister provided sprays some pure oxygen into their lungs. According to AAA, drowsy driving is to blame for 100,000 serious crashes and up to 2,000 deaths every year in the US. Oxygen does provide the body with energy, but no study has shown that it can keep a tired driver alert. Robert Sinclair from the American Automobile Association believes there's no alternative to sleep. It only takes a second or two of what's called microsleep to spin off the road. Despite the warnings, the oxygen canister will soon be on sale at a cost of $5 a can. Five and a half years after becoming the world's first cloned sheep, researchers report that Dolly has developed arthritis, raising fears that the cloning process may have given her a genetic defect. According to Professor Ian Wilmot of Scotland's Roslin Institute, Dolly developed arthritis in her left hind leg at an unusually young age. In 1996, Dolly was cloned from a cell taken from an adult animal. Some scientists speculate that because Dolly was cloned using genetic material from a 6-year-old ewe, her genetic age might be closer to 11. Many animal rights advocates condemn cloning. They believe it's dangerous and unethical, regardless of the methodology. Since Dolly's debut, researchers around the world have cloned several other animals, including cows, and within 2 years hope to produce the world's first allergen-free cats. PPL, the company responsible for creating Dolly, has enjoyed continued success as well. Their cloned piglets represent a major step towards producing animal organs and cells for use in human transplants. The so-called knockout pigs have their alpha-1,3-galactosyl transferase gene inactivated,